Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello everybody and welcome to a special episode of Tales from the Fandom. Returning guest Chelsea Doyle joins me to talk about the Netflix series Sense8. It is a TV series. If you haven't watched it, you need to before you listen to this episode, because this episode is full of spoilers and talking about the 2 seasons that have come out, plus the upcoming 2-hour wrap-up movie that Netflix is doing. However, before we start this episode, just take a moment and listen to promotions for different podcasts that are out there. One of the things I like to do with Tales from the Fandom is shine some spotlights on podcasts that you might not have heard of, but might be up your alley as far as interest. So take a listen, and then you'll be joining Chelsea and I to talk about Sense8.
In the spring of 2016, 3 humans from the planet Earth, Dan,
Remember that one time I convinced you that me and my friend discovered a body?
Mike,
The money's in the bathroom on the sink.
and Jesse
You never seen my documentary Predator?
were abducted by aliens from the planet Kerbert-Suslation. In order to study their culture, these visitors forced their abductees to discuss a wide range of topics, covering everything from the paranormal,
It's a f***ing wicked, spooky haunting, kid.
true crime,
And after they were all dead, I took some coal oil, poured it over the bodies, and then set fire with a match.
Oh my god, is she alright?
cryptozoology,
A chupacabra ate his chickens.
Like his
Loki-
KFC?
conspiracy theories,
Stephen King shot John Lennon in the back 5 times.
He was stealing all my Mars bars.
and everything in between.
Yeah, I be hanging out with Werner Herzog. We watched Akira the Wrath of Khan together, yeah. Yeah.
Join this trio, along with their rotating cast of special guests, as they go in search of the unknown on Podcast 1289. Available on iTunes. Follow them on Twitter at Podcast1289.
Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, the podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And today we now mark the 5th occasion that this guest has come on the podcast. She's had her own episode. We've talked Star Trek, we've talked Final Fantasy, we've talked Ghostbusters, and now here we are to talk about another show. This time it's a Netflix TV series, and this episode was going to be a really angry, upset episode until Netflix kind of came through and decided to do the right thing. So welcome back to the podcast D, and we are here to talk about Sense8.
Yay! when you originally said this to me, it was actually before it got canceled, and then we were like, oh no, and then it got renewed for a finale, 2-hour movie finale, kind of like the Christmas special, I'm guessing, and we were like, what? This is even better. We're not going to be like drinking and crying during this.
Right, we're not going to be angry and ranty. I remember when they announced that it was canceled, I hadn't even finished it yet, and I emailed you. I was like, I don't want to finish it now. I just want to sit on that last episode.
I had several people who were like in the midst of it, or were going to watch it because of my recommendation, and then they're like, I don't know if I want to watch it now that I know that doesn't have a solid ending. And the second I shared the news that it was gonna have a finale, they all said, oh well, now we can watch it. And I was like, watch it anyway, my God. But yes, it was hard because it does end on a cliffhanger. In particular, it's on a cliffhanger. They suck.
No, and it's not even a normal cliffhanger. It's like, it's built all season to the ending, and then you're just like, I'm not going to renew it.
I definitely don't get the sense that they knew it was coming, because they don't seem the kind of people who would do something that much of a cliffhanger. If they didn't think that there was a chance, they would continue. I mean, keep in mind, Netflix canceled this only a few weeks after they put out season 2, which to me is insane, because it gives literally no time for them to even know what the audience is for that show. Like, people are gonna burn through it at their leisure. That's the point of Netflix. But you can't possibly get an idea of how many people are watching season 2 in just a few weeks. So they didn't even give it a chance, and I understand it's really expensive. Like, we all know it's really expensive to make that show. That is not a surprise. But if anything else, I'm like, hey, now it's going to be less expensive because, wait, spoiler! Do we have to do a spoiler warning?
Oh no, you can go with full spoilers.
Okay, spoiler. Now they're all physically in the same place. So they don't have to shoot in 8 different locations. All of the Sense8s are physically together, which would really cut down on their huge expenses and on their supporting cast, because now it's all insular. So they're going to have a much easier time, which is great. But I kept thinking that even before they canceled it, I said, oh wow, they're going to have a much less expensive time.
It boggles my mind, number one, because it took them 2 years from the first season to the second to get from, they put out the first season 2015, second season 2017, but then they can quickly turn around the shows that they want to, such as Stranger Things, or doing the second season of 13 Reasons Why, to capitalize on the popularity that those shows got as quick as they did. And I can understand the longer filming times if you're having to fly to different locations.
Yeah.
But as you said, it ends in London. Everyone is together, and how could they even think that was a suitable ending?
I don't know. They're insane. I'm surprised this was never an original plan for them, that they were like, well, we might as well do a 2-hour finale like we did with the Christmas special. And I mean, obviously the fans were very, very angry, as they should be, but in particular because it got canceled on the first day of Pride Month. And this is the most LGBT friendly show on any network. It is the number one most nuanced LGBT positive community. So for them to cancel that on Pride, the start of Pride, that was really harsh. I remember that was one of the first thoughts that popped in my head, was really? On this day of all days? Why would you do that? So the fans lost their collective minds. And I was part of that. I think I wrote them 25 tweets in that first day, just screaming at Netflix. And I don't regret a single word of it. And I know, I'm not even sorry. And then what happened was Netflix really started to get irritated because every single post they did, and I'm talking, if you look back, every single post they did from that day forward, the comments were just filled with angry messages. They had this one post which is things coming next month, and the entire thing was just comments of people saying, screw all of your other material, all we care about is Sense8. Oh look, I think my comment was, oh look, a whole bunch of things that I don't care about instead of Sense8. And it just was hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of comments on everything they did, no matter what they posted. And there was at some point, there was, I think it was an article or somebody said that Netflix was getting really irritated because they were just getting so much fury at them. And, but it worked because now they have to do the finale because they didn't want to deal with us screaming at them anymore.
Right. They even comment, I think, on the Sense8 Facebook page and do this whole oh, Sense8's forever.
I know, people even got angrier because they were you're the people who canceled it, because it looked like it came from Sense8. And then I'm not sure who it was. It might have been J. Michael Straczynski. I can never say his name. Who, yep. I think it might have been him who somebody asked on Twitter, was that from you guys? And he goes, no guys, that page is run by Netflix. We have said nothing. So everyone got even angrier. How dare you pretend you're one of us when you've taken this from us? And, but as we mentioned, the Lana put up a really touching letter when it was, and she was the one that got to officially say, it's coming back, everyone, for a finale. And then she was like, and maybe, who knows in the future?
Right.
Maybe if they can prove that there's a good audience and that it'll be cheaper now, it could work out. Because I know the expense was like the real problem. And now that they're all in one place, they don't have to fly every single place in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'd raged on my Facebook page, and a different podcast host had commented saying that they hadn't watched it yet, but they heard it ran over budget. It's like, yes, it ran over budget, but number one, like, Netflix didn't promote it ever.
I know.
And then, you know, you have this concept for a show that's never been done before, and they're pulling it off remarkably well.
It was so original. It's such an original show and so fascinating. I think they just never knew how to market it. Like, I think that they always had a really hard time understanding how to market this to people. I mean, the people who eventually did figure out is like sci-fi fans, and then obviously the LGBT community. So they just like kind of found it because Netflix did put like a little bit of, and then it was word of mouth. But like they didn't know who their target audience was. They could never figure that out. Who are we trying to make this for? And I think the creators knew exactly who they were making it for, but but Netflix seemed to really have trouble understanding like how to, I mean, they have an easy time with Orange is the New Black and House of Cards, and they always push those like crazy hard. But with Sense8, I just got the sense there, like, what do we do with this? Like, how do we present this to people? And I'm like, well, I don't know, present it as the awesomeness it is.
Now, how did you find out about Sense8 originally? Were you just finding it on Netflix, or did someone recommend it to you?
I saw it come up on Netflix, and I put it on my to-watch list. I didn't really know much about it. I was just like, oh, okay. And I know the Wachowskis did it, and I like the Wachowskis a lot. And so somebody's like, it's a science fiction from the Wachowskis with a really big cast, and I didn't know anybody. I think Naveen Andrews, I love Naveen Andrews from Lost, so I knew he was in it, and I knew the woman who played Tonks was in it, and so I didn't really, and obviously Martha Jones from Doctor Who is in it. So there were like some names, I go, oh yeah, those people. But I think it was actually Tumblr, where I always am on Tumblr and I see people start making GIFs. And it was only a few days after it came out because I started watching relatively quickly. And I just kept seeing these really interesting GIFs. And I'm like, what is this? Who is this? And they just kept coming and I couldn't figure it out. And finally I started. And the thing is that it's really hard to sell this show because the first few episodes are kind of rocky, and not in the sense that they're bad, but this is a big concept. And it's really hard to be like, okay, here's these 8 characters, 8 separate lives, 8 separate issues. Like, we're going to spend the first few episodes kind of setting all them up, which is really hard in general. Like, it's hard to do one person's life in a show, but 8 people's life is hard. And then it took a few episodes for them to actually interact. And I think for me, it was the what's going on scene, which is what a lot of people love. For me, which is the first time you really, really get to see all of them interact in the same moment together. And that was a moment where I already liked it, but that was a moment where I'm like, yes, I can't wait until this is normal. And I remember at the end of season 1, we were so excited because it was the first episode where all of them worked like 100% together to solve a problem. And then I kept going, I can't wait until they're physically in the same place. And then season 2 gave me exactly that. It was very exciting, although only with some sadness. But so I think I started it like a week after it came out, just because I just kept hearing all these things about it. I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea what it was about. at all. And I knew a few of role players that were already starting to talk about it and wanting to play it. And I'm like, what is this? So I started and I watched all of it in like 24 hours and it was amazing.
I think I started it probably sometime last year, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And I had wanted to watch it. It had been on my list of shows to watch and I never did. And then I finally had that free time and it's like, okay, I'll take a list or, take a watch on it.
Yeah.
And it took it, just like you said, it took a while to get into it, even longer than the normal, like 3 episodes. Like you're really probably first half of the first season, you're scratching your head and it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, but it's definitely interesting. It helps that they present really good characters, like people you like, regardless of. So even when you're like, okay, maybe this is all really confusing and scattered, but I really like these people at least. That helps. Like if they had even one character, one actor that was really annoying or like you just couldn't get behind them, then that would have been a problem. But I always say, I have this ongoing joke with this show that whenever somebody's on the screen, I'm like, you're my favorite. And then somebody else comes on the screen and I go, no, you're my favorite. And I do that with all of them because I love them all so much.
Yes, all of them were great. I loved getting to know each of the characters. They all had their own story. It's not like someone was shunted to the side.
It's true.
They got to have their own moments and their own victories and their own, faults, and bad things happen and good things happen.
Yeah, I really like how they don't shy away from having complicated characters. Like, they're far from perfect people. Like, these are, they, especially like somebody like Wolfgang, who is actively like a really violent, difficult, closed off kind of person. And yeah, we get to see him in a more emotional light in like certain things, but they still don't shy away from the fact that he is like a murderer, that he is really dark, that he has a lot of darkness in him. And then the same kind of thing, I don't know about Sun. Sun's harder to go because you can't help but love her, even though she's so messed up. Like, she murders more people in the show than anyone else. She's killed everyone. I remember I was telling somebody the scene the other day where she goes, call me bitch one more time. And I'm like, and then she murders everyone in the gang. And they're like, wait, the character murders all these people? I'm like, yeah. You don't really think about that too much while you're watching.
No, you kind of suspend that whole, these people are all dying around them.
Yeah, I mean, Sun and Wolfgang obviously are the two that are the most violent. Like, they're just so messed up. And that's why I started laughing in the scene where she's hunting her brother when she's in the club in the season 2. And they're all like, Son, let's think about this. Son, let's calm down. And Wolfgang's like, I've got your back. Like, let's go kill him. And I'm like, I love you too. I was like, I like, you're my murder babies is what you are. I said, of course, there was like something on Tumblr where the joke is like, the two of them murder all these people and everyone's like, cinnamon rolls. Too good for this world. They're hacking people's arms off. Like, aren't you cute? It's so bad, but it's so true. You can't help but love them. I don't know, they do a really good job of making those really fun characters. And I mean, like, I love Leto, but I love the ongoing joke of how dramatic he is. Like, it's just funny. They go all in, like, they don't, that's in the whole flaws thing. Like, they go all in. They're like, screw it, we're not gonna have perfect people. Like, Leto is all over the place emotionally, and he's dramatic, and he makes you laugh, and he makes you sad. Like, I remember in the premiere of season 2 when he just starts screaming as Riley, I lost it because it's so Leto. And it's so, remember when he just puts his hands on his face and goes, ah, and screams, and I'm like, of course it's you doing that.
Of course.
He's so wonderful. I'm really excited. I think the most exciting thing outside of them all physically being together is that this means that Hernando and Danny get to meet everyone.
Yes, because they had to have come with him to London.
Yeah, no, because he says we have to go to London, and they said okay. Like they went with them. They have to. There's no way they would have just let him go without them. Especially when he like fell over with blood dripping out of him.
Yeah.
So they're the only loved ones that really have like no idea right now. Like the ones
That's
that are
going to
that
be interesting.
close. Yeah, so I'm really excited, and I'm just like, you keep trying to think, how are they going to react? I'm like, well, Danny's going to say that's hot immediately. She's going to be so turned on because it's 5 men with Hernando. Like, yes, I feel like Hernando's going to like it, or just think it's like really artistic and interesting for him. He might have for a few minutes be like, I don't know about this. Like every time you have sex, they're there. Okay. That's a little awkward, but I don't know. I feel like those two are gonna be like, yeah, okay, all right. Sounds interesting. He might be a little crazy, but they can't really be crazy anymore if they physically meet them.
That's right.
So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited for Nomi and Amanita to get married, which I'm sure is gonna happen in the finale. And I'm really excited about Hernando and Danny finding out about everyone.
Now, Dee, who is your favorite character
That's
of the
so
Sense8?
mean. That's so mean.
Of the eight.
That's so mean. I just have to think about that. If you have an easier answer, you answer while I think about it.
Okay, for me, I mean I like to. There's so many. I love them all, just like you do. You love them more than me, I think. But for me, it comes down to either Sun, because I love her whole story arc and her motivation and how she was pushed to the side as a daughter and what she did and what she overcame and how she took the fall even though she didn't want to, and then like this whole revenge arc in season 2. So I love that. But then on the flip side, like I really wish we had seen a little bit more of her, but I really love Kala.
Yeah, I love Kala.
One, for her relationship that she has with her family and her spirituality and how she's actually, like, she balances her spirituality with what she does in medicine.
Yeah, I missed that because that was such a big part of her season 1. And I feel like season 2 just became all about her love life. And I was like, I really liked her whole science and spirituality thing.
Exactly. And I like her relationship with Wolfgang a lot because they just... On the level of they aren't supposed to work and yet here they are and they do.
Yeah, I've had some interesting conversations with people about whether long-term those two would work, and I don't have an answer because I'm like, they're so different, and they're always going to come into problems. That doesn't mean that I don't think that they would try and that it wouldn't always be awkward, but I could also see them people who like burn out, that don't manage to long-term make it work because it's just because he's always gonna go back to the way he is, and she's always gonna be frustrated by that. So I don't know. I root for them for sure, but I also think it's interesting that they have that kind of relationship because I feel like all the other characters have really harmonious relationships. Like Riley and Will are perfect, and Nomi and Amanita perfect, and Hernan, like everyone just has really good healthy relationships, and I think Kala and Wolfgang are like the most tumultuous of all of them because they're so different. So I actually like the push and pull. I wouldn't want them to become like the perfect couple. I think that would not work for them. Like, I think
not at all.
It would be really boring. I don't think it'll ever happen though. Like they're never going to be perfect. There's always going to be problems with them. But God. So back to my favorite. I think it's definitely Sun and probably Nomi, like a mix of those two. I love Sun a lot. She's just awesome in general for all the reasons you mentioned. But there, I still would love a little more emotional depth from a character. Like, not that I'm saying she doesn't have it. I just do like characters that like have a little bit more heart on their sleeve, and that's why I'd say like Nomi kind of balances that for me because she's all intellect and all emotion, and I feel like she's a really important character because her being trans was so was so important to her character, but also obviously she has a whole different life and character and all the stuff that has nothing to do with that. But I feel like even more so than on Orange is the New Black, she really gets into the emotional parts of being trans, coming out, like living her life, the problems that come from all different places, from her family, from the LGBT community, from like it just she has all these things working against her and her continuing to like fight. And I like in season 1 where she has those moments of like wondering if she is crazy and if there is something wrong with her, which of course there isn't. But like that's a normal thing to think about when these things are happening to you. And so I just feel like with Nomi, she just manages to be like really strong but like really vulnerable at the same time. So I think that to this day, one of my favorite scenes in the entire show is that conversation between her and Leto. And I feel like if every person who had any issues with like homophobia or transphobia, if they could just watch that scene where they talk about their backgrounds and Hernando breaking up with him and what it means, that I feel like if they watch that scene, it would be hard not to feel something, like not to feel some empathy for these people and what they're saying. So I really wish everyone would watch that scene because I feel like they would really understand even a little bit what it is, you know?
Absolutely. There was one scene, it was in season 1 with Nita and Nomi, and how Nomi they were at the Pride Festival.
Yeah.
And she was like, I've never felt really included. And even, I think it was Amanita's friends said like, oh, you shouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. What are you doing here? And that really got me because as normal white guy, straight white guy, I don't ever run across these things unless I have friends that run across it. And it's like, it is just shocking to see that out in the open and know that like there are people that have to go through that, let alone like wonder where their place is in that community.
Yeah, and that even the community they want to be a part of isn't letting them be a part of that community, which is a serious thing, and it's a real thing. And I just think they did so well with it. I mean, it's really funny though. They're like, she's gonna be transgender, lesbian, in an interracial relationship. Like, we're just gonna go all in, guys. How can you have a harder relationship than that? But it's beautiful and perfect in every way. So I really love that. I think they did such a good job with her. I just really am impressed. And whenever somebody is like, we talk about how they don't hire trans actors to play trans characters. And I'm like, hey, look, they've casted a trans actor to play a trans character, and it is amazing because she's also incredibly talented. But beyond that, she knows exactly what she's talking about, and it's really personal to her. And I know Laverne Cox, they did the same thing in Orange is the New Black, and I'm like, these are great actresses. I'm 100% sure there are other trans actors and actresses who can play these roles if you just give them the opportunity, because when you've done it, it's been awesome. So I'm not surprised people still get upset when trans characters are played by straight people. So, but Nomi, I just feel also is the first character that just right away my emotions were invested in her, because she starts out as somebody who just kind of needs you to care about her.
Right.
She needs you to have faith in her and believe in her and want to support her, because everyone else is against her. So I think they did some great things with her. I love how she's kind of the person that's like the mom of the group. Not more so than Riley, who's just very sweet and Hufflepuffish. But I like Nomi's always the one that's like, okay, everyone, calm down, everyone. Okay, like, okay, we're gonna focus now. We're gonna figure out the answers. Like, she's always the one who calms everyone down, who is a great sounding board for other people. And I really love that about her. I feel like they all have really cool roles in where they fit in the Sense8. So, but Nomi's the one that I just feel like really connects. Everyone relies on her. Everyone leans on her. And I like that. So.
And I like how Nomi really kind of kicked off the whole series with Nomi's in trouble, and now people have to start jumping in to save her, even though we have no clue what's going on and what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, 'cause she was the first one that got affected and taken in. They were going to cut into her brain, and, like, that was the first real conflict, and she was the one that, like, first actively showed all these signs. We knew that Will and Riley saw each other, but, like, Nomi was the medical part of it in the beginning. So, yeah, and we were so excited when she got free. And, yeah, I just really love her. I love everyone. I think they also are really great at supporting actors. Like, wow. Their supporting cast is just as amazing as the main cast. And that's important because the supporting cast are really important to the show. And, you know, you have Freema, who plays Amanita, who is in Doctor Who. And she's just, I mean, she's wonderful, and you just want to believe so much of them. Can you imagine, though, like, you have to be the most loving, open-minded, wonderful person to just hear your significant other be like, I think I'm experiencing the lives of other people, and go, okay, I believe you.
Yep.
Without any question, because that's what she did. She's like, yeah, I know you're not crazy, so what you said must be true. I'm like, that's, you know, you want to believe that you'd be able to do that for your loved ones, but the reality is people might question that a little bit. But she's lovely, and I just think that they all have really good co-stars. I'm really glad that Sun got Detective Munn, even if it wasn't necessarily romance. It's just she doesn't have a lot of, she had the women in the prison, but, like, right. I feel like she needs more of a supporting cast than the others. Like, she didn't have as much of a supporting cast until recently, so.
Yeah, she just is really just her prison cellmates
and
for
awesome.
a while.
They're awesome. But, yeah, I feel like she got the shaft a little bit. I mean, to be fair, it's also because she was in prison. So, most of her scenes, if they wanted scenes with her, had to basically be in other people's minds.
Right.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Okay. Everyone has different interpretations of this. So sometimes we know that they're talking out loud when one of them is there, and then sometimes they're not. So what do you think about that? Do you think it's because they don't have enough control? Do you think it's because of who it is? Like, it's just interesting to me because, you know, we know that in the beginning in particular, it sounded like they were talking out loud, like... And when Will and Riley kissed and his partner, and he's like, what the hell? But then you see something like this season with Wolfgang and the other Sense8 woman, and they're, like, practically making out and doing all this stuff, while in person they don't look like any different whatsoever. So I'm like, is it a skill thing? Have they just learned how to be better in public? Or is it because of who it is? Like, Wolfgang's a really contained person, so he has an easier time than Will or Riley? I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's who it is, because I think, like you said with Wolfgang is very contained. Sun is very contained. Like, those two characters, I think, are the two that kind of show that off the most.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, Leto on the other end of the spectrum is all over the place. And Leto, when he's trying to do certain things, is actually having to do them in, like, he's doing it over in what I think is California, where he's having to show off his bartending
skills.
and I think it's definitely number one. It's got to be like the people and how contained they are. But then I think over time they can start getting a handle on it, because you see it with Kala. I think more with her than maybe some of the other characters, where as she's come into understanding it and, like, realizing that it's not, like, she's not going crazy, that she's able to control what she's doing too.
Yeah, I mean, and also it really depends on who's visiting with them, because I feel like, for example, Wolfgang is normally really controlled, but one of the few times he's not is when he's visiting with Kala. Like, he's normally, he messes up a few times when he's with her. And I feel like that makes sense. And Sun did mess up actually this season, like, once. It was right after she got out of prison. And I'd never seen her make that mistake before in front of somebody else. Like, they said that they knew she talked to herself a lot, but that was when she was in her own cell. And
Right.
I'm not sure who she was talking to because I don't remember exactly. It was right after she got out of prison. But I remember going, whoa, Sen almost never makes that mistake. Like, wow, that's really surprising to me. And I just find it interesting because I do think that they've all gotten better. I just wonder what that's like. Like, are they, sometimes they seem like it's all going on in their head, and sometimes they're doing it in real life. And I think that's very interesting. And it's probably always a tension, you know, like, am I going to mess up in person because
Mm-hmm.
somebody's talking to me? Probably. I would always be worried about that.
One of the things I was interested in with season 2 was like the introduction of all the other Sense8s
Yes,
and the other
yes.
clusters and how they interacted with each other, or how they tried not to interact with each other.
What I think is interesting about that is that they are the youngest cluster. Our cluster is the youngest. They just were born. So the
Mm-hmm.
people they're interacting with have been around for a while. And you can tell because, for one, they're terrified and they're in hiding because the rest of them have been hunted down by now. And for two, because they're clearly able to control themselves in a much different way than our cluster is. Like, they seem to have it all together a lot better. Like, they know how to, like, visit people that aren't part of their clusters, and they know how to take skills and things like that from all around the place. So I feel like that's just a glimpse of what our cluster will be able to do someday if they keep going in that direction. But I think what's important is, unfortunately, season 3, they're probably going to head into an actual war where they inspire all of the Sense8s to, like, not be afraid and to rise up against the evil people who are trying to mess with them. And, like, I really wanted to see that storyline. So, but I do have a question for you about the new Sense8s. So I had an interesting feeling about, I can't remember her name. She's the evil Sense8 who was dealing with Wolfgang. But
Okay.
my question is, do you think she's evil, or do you think she's just put in a really bad situation?
That's a tough one. I didn't like her at all. I thought she was definitely evil. And, I'm just going to just say I think she's evil
She's
and she's playing
evil.
on that side.
Yeah, I just have some questions about her and her people, because I definitely think you're right. I don't think that she's a good person, but I also have to question, well, there are a lot of Sense8. It's the clusters that work with them. Is it out of just terror? Like, are they terrified of what's going to happen to them if they don't help other people? And if they don't help the bad guys find them. And I'm not saying that that's her reasoning, but there were a few hints with her where she more or less was like, there's no point in fighting them, so why not use them and, like, get something out of it. So I'm not saying that she's good. I just think that they do seem like the other clusters are kind of all screwed. Like, they've all had a really hard time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking her up now. Her name's Lila.
Lila.
And there's 8 Sense8s in there. Apparently, they have made a deal with BPO to remain free from experimentation, and they all seem nasty. Like
They do.
they
They
all
do
have
seem
that.
nasty.
They seem like a cluster born just to be on that dark side.
Yeah, and I mean, as far, I feel like they are, but I also think it's interesting that that's the kind of thing, like, a cluster might have to discuss, you know?
Right.
Um, we don't want to be experimented on, so let's work with them. And, maybe when they first started working with these people, they weren't as dark as they are now. And, like, over
Mm-hmm.
time, we don't know how long they've been with that group, like, how long they've been doing it, because I'm not saying that they necessarily felt anything other than, like, the dark cluster, because they did. It's
Right.
just that she made the mention that it was to protect themselves from experimentation, and because as we've seen, Whispers, like, just will keep torturing and killing one of them until he kills all of them. And we know that the other clusters Angelica had were all killed. And So I just kind of wonder, like, if your options are be evil and not get experimented on or your cluster murdered, like, which one would you go with? And so I just hope that if they did go in that direction, not that that cluster needed to be, but like I feel like there could have at least been one cluster that was working for the bad guys that had more of a moral ambiguity. I think that I would have really liked to hear that. So I don't think we'll ever get it, but I did think season 3 was headed toward a war with the Sense8s and the people who are hunting them.
Right. What do you think about Whispers as a villain or as a character?
Well, I mean, I hate him in a good way.
Right.
He's a great bad guy. He's a really great bad guy, but he's kind of like a good example of that, right? Like he is a Sense8, and he's joined the dark side, and we can talk about Jonas too because this is connected.
Yep.
And I think that he eventually, maybe in the beginning, he was like, sure, I'll help you and not get in trouble. But I think he actually believes in the cause. Like, he really does think that they're doing the right thing, or the information that they're gathering, the experimentation they're doing is going to lead somewhere good for him and for other. Like, I think that he really actually cares about what they're doing in like an evil, of course, sort of way. But I think he's a good bad guy because he has the same abilities they do, only he's a lot more skilled and experienced, and I do think that he believes in what he's doing, which is always a dangerous thing with a villain, because if they actually care about what they're doing, they're a lot more dangerous than if they're just doing it for the money or whatever. He does seem, I'm intrigued by what happened I think he betrayed all of his Sense8s, possibly. Like, I don't think any of his cluster is alive. That would be interesting if they were, but doesn't seem like they are. And I wonder if his ability to look at you and then be able to visit you at any time, is that an ability any Sense8 will be able to learn eventually? Is that how they visit each other? If they've seen them once, they can visit them at any time. Is that something our people have to learn? Like, I think so.
Because I wondered that with Riley, because, you know, the people that went and were at the rave and they saw Riley were able to go and see Riley later.
So I think that that's a skill that they're all going to have to learn. I think that he just has the power in which to then kidnap the people and torture them. So I don't really, we're not fully informed about where his people come from. Obviously, for experimentation, for power, for powers, for whatever they're looking for. So that's when we get to Jonas. What do you think about Jonas?
Oh, you know, Jonas is like a flip-flopper, man. I do not know. There are times where I'm like, okay, Jonas is on their side. Jonas is not on their side. Oh, Jonas is back and being on their side again, trying to help them out. And he's just playing it off like he had to. And then that end scene where it's like, oh, Jonas is like being a real dick. Yeah, I was thinking, I don't know what Jonas is playing at, but he's not on the side that he needs to be on right now.
I don't really know where he's at. I feel like he's on his own side. I feel like he thinks that he's helping them. I don't think that he's trying to hurt them. I think that he believes whatever morally ambiguous thing he's doing is for good reasons. Because I just think about that last scene with him where he says, "I'm sorry, Will, you won't be able to understand now." And I believe him when he says things like that. Like, there's something else going on. There are reasons he believes that he's doing the right thing at that moment. And I think that he's always been that way. I think that he is always not necessarily playing both sides, but he thinks he's doing the right thing. And I'm like, but what is it? I don't know where your game is, man. But I do think that he might want to work with them, but for right now, he has to be treated as an enemy, because you can't trust you can trust that he might want to help you, but you can't trust his choices, because he's just going to do what he thinks is the right thing rather than because he clearly isn't going to listen to anyone else. So I think for right now, it makes sense that they treat him as an enemy, because he is right now an enemy. That doesn't mean that I think he's overall an enemy.
I think a part of it is because he was on Lost, and there's some carryover on the character, and you know
Saeed.
I don't mean to carry over stuff on that character, but you see him and he's like, oh yeah, it's totally Saeed, and now he's doing what he needs to do to survive.
Exactly. And I just think there's a lot more to whatever deal he made with them. I'm so sad that we're probably never going to get an answer on that because they're not going to have enough time. But whatever deal he made with them, that didn't get him lobotomized. I'm really intrigued because he went from being like lobotomized and held captive to like having his own apartment and a direct line to people in charge. Like, what happened? I need to know. What is going on?
That was one of my favorite things about season 2 was they started actually getting into the backstory of Sense8s and what was going on, and these like the diplomatic meetings to talk about them and all this backstory. I'm like, I just want more. Like, give me more so I can just build on that and build on that. And
yeah, I agree.
It's frustrating now where we're not going to get a season 3, which would have been phenomenal, like with the Sense8s that they could have brought in and interacted with and the characters, because they started building that second layer of characters that you got to see during like that phone call or what, I can't remember what they actually called it, like that whole, let me find out the information. You see like the flashes of all the different
game of
Sense8s.
Telephone. Yeah.
Like you get to see the glimpses of those characters and you're like, I'd love to know more about that character or that character and their cluster of people.
I agree. I agree entirely. Like, it's so unfortunate because they have so much, and they've set up so many good things, and we're never going to get to them. And I mean, they're not going to. I hope they don't try, really. I want them to, like, wrap up the things we care about, but I don't want them to go too far with, like, we have to answer every single thing or else. I'm like, no, you can't expect answers for everything in 2 hours. Like, I want the character then to save Wolfgang, to maybe have enough of a resolution that they can have a wedding, and then it's okay to just be like, and things are okay because we only have 2 hours. Like, I don't know. I just feel like that, like in Lost, I loved Lost, but a lot of people have problems with the ending of Lost. But I wasn't one of them because all I cared about was like the emotional journey of the characters. And people who were always obsessed with the mysteries were disappointed because the finale more or less was just leaning on the emotional payoff with the characters, which was excellent. So I'm a little worried that they're going to be like, we have to answer everything. Let's put it all in. And I'm like, no, don't do that, please.
Well, I was thinking, when they announced that it's going to be 2 hours, it's going to be a finale basically, and I was thinking, how are they going to do it? Because they can't really give us the war that we want and the war that we deserve, because that would be shortchanging everybody. And so the only thing that I can come up with is that they're going to do something where they're going to set it maybe a couple years in the future and do things in flashback, like, oh yeah, during this time, or this is what happened, and they'll flash back to like snippets of maybe the war or the resolution, and then they'll show what's happened to the characters that we've all like loved during these 2 seasons. Like, where are they now? Like, oh, Leto is now an established actor in America. Or
I don't think they're gonna do that. I think they're gonna pick up right where they left off. But I mean, maybe they'll do a flash forward. So maybe a lot of the episode will be resolution or the continuation of the story now, and then like in the last 10 minutes or whatever, they're like, okay, here's a flash forward 5 years in the future. Here's where everyone is at, which is something that a few shows have done in the finale, where they're like, okay, here's a continuation of the story, but now we're going to show you 10 years from now what's going to happen. And I think that would kind of be the best of both worlds, in the sense that we want to know what the future looks like for them, but we also want, like, I don't think they're going to do remember when we saved Wolfgang? Like,
right.
We're going to see them save Wolfgang, but I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I'm interested. I'm excited.
the show that I thought of when you said the doing like an hour, then like doing like a flash forward part was, and I know you quit the show, so I don't think you ever saw it, was Glee, where they did it in the final episode where the last hour was wrap up and then the second hour was like 5 years or 10 years in the future or whatever.
I heard that, so I knew it existed.
Yes.
But I like that actually. That's better than I'd expect from them. But yeah, I think something like that, where it's just like, okay, they saved Wolfgang, and then it's like 10 years later, they have managed to not die.
Right?
They managed to not die and be tortured to death. Yay! But yeah, I think, I don't know what they're gonna do, but I just hope they don't feel burdened by needing to give so much exposition that they miss, like, that they just have to give us a good story and we'll be happy.
Exactly.
I promise we'll just be happy if it kind of wraps up people, regardless of maybe not being perfect.
Do you think if, like, and again, like, we don't know what the metrics that they're using for these shows, because they've gone ahead and they've canceled a few other of the Netflix shows in the past couple months since they did Sense8, and they've renewed other shows that, you know, were shocked to have renewals. And obviously they are working on new original, like, Netflix products all the time. And I kind of wish that they would give us, like, what metrics they use. Obviously money was the big issue with the show, like with the cost of the cast and having to be in all those different locations. I have to wonder if
they could get a renewal.
if the 2-hour finale or like that special episode, if it does well enough, like, what would be the burden on Netflix, like, to get them to say, you know what, let's do another, like, 6 episodes, or even do something like, you know, go the Sherlock route and do 3 episodes,
3 or 4 episodes. You know, I don't think Netflix has any plans for that. I think that they feel like they have given us enough for the 2-hour, but that doesn't mean that if it isn't successful, and if they can prove that they're not gonna go over budget. If they can prove, okay, now they're all physically here, this is our plan, we promise we won't go over this amount of money, like, we've cut most of the, like, you know, we've done all the necessary gouges and that will keep this a lucrative event rather than money waster. So I can say that if they'd managed to bring the amount of money down, if they managed to prove that they already proved their audience is there, but like a continued audience, that they might be able to convince them, because I think that was always the thing. It just wasn't enough bang for the buck. And if they can prove that they can fix that, then they might continue. But I just wouldn't put all our eggs in that basket. But it is possible.
Well, we'll have to cross our fingers and just hope for the best, because, you know, it's such... and I was trying to explain it to somebody, and I said, you know, this TV series is probably the most dynamic and well-written and most inclusive. And it's not inclusive for the sake of being inclusive. It's just, these are your characters, and that's what you have. Like, they're not trying to have, like, okay, we need to check the boxes. There's like no box checking on this.
This is the opposite of a box check. It's more like, you have straight characters. None of them are straight, so that's already gone. Like, the writers have said that none of them are straight anymore because they've had sex with men and women at this point. So the entire cast, all the characters, none of them are straight. So that's interesting. I think they said that they now consider all of them pansexual, because, which is like caused some stirs, because people are like, well, we don't want the lesbians to be considered pansexual. But, like, anyway, the point being that they were saying is none of them are straight.
Right.
Like, it's impossible, because they've all officially had sex with everyone. Like, they can't they can't pretend otherwise anymore. And
Exactly.
I think they got into that obviously with the joke with Will being like, I don't know if I've had sex with a guy. Wait a second. And they're like, yeah, you have, honey, like several times now. But yeah, I mean, I think that the important thing is that the characters, and I think it's important that the characters never question it really, like from early on. Remember where Will was talking to Nomi's parents, and they kept calling Nomi he, and he's like, her name is Nomi. Like
Right.
early on, the idea is that none of them think it's really weird who each other are. Like they don't have that. They just all accept each other. And
Yep.
they have that easy acceptance and easy love for each other, and like that's what makes the show what it is. It's like it's so emotional and it's so loving and kind and like positive, and it drives me crazy how it's such a nice show. Like everyone's so loving and wonderful, and like how could you not appreciate that in the show? Like they're just such good people. Even when they're bad people, they're good people. And like all of the, oh god, in this season, all of like the support scenes, like when they need each other and they're all hugging, I'm like, I hate you, this is so cute. Because it's true, they're just, it's about connection, and about how 8 completely different people could all, if they just like let themselves be connected and love each other, like it could just work. And I love that. So there's like, the inclusion is in the sense that like no one ever questions that it shouldn't be included. They just are. Like that's the end. Like there's no question. And I think that, I mean, that was one of the selling points. Everyone's like, oh, it's really racially diverse, sexuality diverse, like has a lot of emotional scenes, but then crazy action scenes. Like it's all over the place. And I just think that it kind of has everything, which is why it's sad that not everyone in the world loves it as they should.
If you had to choose a character to wrap up their story arc, which character would you choose, and how would you wrap it up?
Like wrap up their story.
You get to choose one of the 8, and you're wrapping up their story. What would you do, and who would you choose?
Man, that's just, there are a few that I feel it's just really easy. Like, they would be really easy to wrap up. Like, Sun would be really easy to wrap up because she's already caught her brother. And her brother's in, so she could, he's gonna get arrested, he'll be prosecuted, she'll be exonerated, and then she'll take over the business, I suppose. And but like, she has kind of simplistic goals, you know, like that's kind of how it is. So I don't know. I guess I would go for something more complex, like Wolfgang. How do you wrap up a character like Wolfgang? Like, I guess he and Kala could go off in the sunset together, but like, it wouldn't be that perfect. It wouldn't be like that for them. So I think that for them, or for those two characters, it would definitely be like a who knows where this is headed of like everyone, because Nomi and Amanita could get married and keep being hackers and awesome, and Hernando and Lito can get married and live with Danny and their OT3 of type forever, and Riley and Will could just like settle down together and be adorable and have babies. But like for me, Kala and Wolfgang are the ones that have the biggest question marks of like, where could their life go, together or apart? I'm not sure where they could go, especially Kala, because I don't think that after all this she could really find it in her to like long-term stay involved with her husband, because honestly she should have, it really frustrates me when she keeps going back and forth. I'm like, dude, you're already way over the line here. Like, this is, I don't know why you think you can keep doing this and it's okay, because it's not. And like at this point I'm like, come on, just let the guy go, let him find somebody who will actually love him. He seems like a nice enough guy, even if he has some questionable stuff going on right now. Like, let him go. Find a woman that will actually love him and have children, or whatever he wants. Like, you're not happy with him, and he isn't ultimately very happy with you because you're like never there. So I always feel like I want to yell that at Kala. So I guess Kala and Wolfgang are the only question marks for me. Everyone else I can like envision an ending to. But those two, I'm like, I don't know what their future is. Maybe there isn't one. I don't know. What about you?
Wolfgang becomes head of like some mob in
Mob.
Germany.
That's
like
right.
he's just like the de facto leader, and he has Kala just in his head. There you go. Done.
Yeah, she would hate that.
I would love to see something with them being able to get BPO back on the track that it was supposed to be on.
Yeah,
because
that would be
they alluded to it a while, like, oh, this isn't how it's supposed to be. They're supposed to have done it differently, and BPO has kind of been twisted into what it is now. And I'd like to see them be that that catalyst for change in the future. But Kala could do something along the lines of doing something medically with them. And
yeah, well, I
don't
mean,
know.
if they were willing, people were willing to like give samples willingly, she could do scientific discovery that way. Like, I agree, that'd be cool if our group took over everything, like stop the bad guys, took the company over and put it back on, so everyone could explore like what they are, what are Sense8s, what are their future in this world. And like I feel like they are really curious about that stuff. They do want to know where they come from. It's just the only people who seem to have answers are the bad people.
Right. And I know, J. Michael Straczynski is one of the creators and writers for it.
Yeah.
And he did a comic book a while back, and you probably know it. It's called Rising Stars.
Yes.
And it seems kind of similar in the sense of, well, here's this group of people, they've been given powers, and then, like, if you're killing off those people, like, do the other people get stronger? Do they get weaker? Like, it's one of those things where if they had been able to explore another season, another 2 seasons, and go into that dynamic of how Sense8s work and how things happen, and it would just be real cool. But
I would really, I would love it if worse comes to worse, they could continue this in comic book form.
They could.
I'm just saying, if they had to. There's no other choice. They do have somebody that's running the show that writes comic books. And it would be the perfect option, but I still would rather that than nothing. So
right.
But yeah, I think that I like your idea. I like your idea a lot. I think it would be, because they could have like happily ever after, but I think that wouldn't like give them the option of learning more about themselves and understanding how they came to be, and like if any of them ever want to birth their own cluster, like what does that mean? What are the ideas behind that? Like, could we all technically have a cluster? Like, it's not just women, because men can give clusters too. So what is the deal there?
Give us the answers.
Give us the answers, but not all of it in one.
Yeah, you got to spread it out. Like, J. Michael Straczynski had a plan for Babylon 5. 5 seasons. He got his 5 seasons. Where was the plan for Sense8 with Netflix? Like, come on.
I have no idea.
It couldn't have been for 2 seasons.
I don't know. They've actually never said if they had an exact amount of seasons in mind. I don't think that they plan on a really long. I think they plan on, I could totally see 5 too in their mindset. Like, I think they could do less. Think they could do 4 and be fine. But
right.
I didn't get the sense from them that they planned like 10 seasons. That just wasn't going to happen. Like, that's not the way the show was going to work.
Oh, no, not at all. This is not Supernatural.
No, that wasn't going to happen. So, I don't know if they like told Netflix, here's our 5-season arc, which probably would have been a really good idea. If they didn't, that would have been a good idea, because if they're like, we have an exact plan, how do we make this plan happen? And maybe it would have worked out. I don't know. I feel like, and then you get the things like when shows go on too long and they had a set plan, like Arrow. Not to get into that, but Arrow, they had a very clear plan for the first 3 seasons. Like, they knew exactly what they wanted from the first 3 seasons. And then they had no idea what they wanted anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that wasn't the best plan that you could have done. And that didn't work out for you too well. I mean, I still like the show, but it's definitely pretty obvious. So, I don't know. I feel like I feel like I would love them to get a full extra season because I think that they could 100% wrap up this show in one season, in half a season. They could give them 5-6 episodes, and I think they could do what they wanted to do.
Absolutely.
2 hours is not enough, but it's something, but it's not enough. I think like 5 episodes would maybe finish it with,
or even like even a 4-hour 2-parter miniseries, like something because it needs more than 2, but it does it. If they do it how they like can wiggle around with it, I think they could do it in 4. Like 4 hours.
Exactly. Like I think it's too much for 2 hours, but I think for like 4 or 5 hours, that's perfect amount. Like I kind of wish they're like, we'll give you half a season, because I do think that if they were given half a season, they could just end it, and like they really could. Like it won't. I think the 2 hour they'll manage to wrap up some things, but they won't be able to do what they wanted to. And I think if they were given, and Lana's letter where she said, who knows from there? I'm like, it's because you're not done with the show. Like, if they just gave you a way to finish that show for real, like 5 episodes, go finish it and that's it, they would probably do that. But as long as they don't do that, they're always going to have, like, we had so many more things to do.
Right, exactly.
And, yeah, but I mean, I'm just content with, I wish it was more than that, but I am 100% fine with what they ended up doing. I just want them to have something to wrap things up, and I know that it's really important to the actors and everyone that they have it as well, so I know that they were all really sad, so they all were on Twitter, like, freaking out when it got renewed for the 2-hour special. It's a great show. Everyone should watch it.
Well, there you go. Is there anything you'd like to add? Because I know that, originally this was going to be the angry Sense8 recording, and now it's the happy Sense8 recording with like some question marks on where could Sense8 go from here. But is there anything else that like strikes you that you've got to get out there before we wrap things up?
No, I think it's just making sure people know about it, because Netflix sucks at it, and probably a lot of people never even knew it existed until this war between Netflix and Sense8 fans happened. Mm-hmm. And I just would say that if you like the show, just make sure you become that annoying friend who tells everyone to watch it. Because that's what I've done, and it's been successful. Because I do feel like the more people that are interested and like get pulled in and maybe like it, then the better. And I just feel like it's a good show on its own. It's not only that I want people to watch it because it'll get more attention and more viewers. It's also because it really is a good show with good characters, and you feel a lot of things, and it's oddly, like, weirdly very optimistic and positive about humankind, which I just didn't expect when I went into it, but they just really have a very positive view of humanity and humanity's ability to be kind to each other and to be good, and I just did not expect that from this show, but they do it, so I just feel like everyone should watch it at the end.
The end.
What about you?
I just think people need to comment and post about it, because I didn't watch it until I had enough people like telling me I needed to watch it, so, and then I became that person, like, but especially before the second season, of, you really need to watch this. You really need to watch this. Maybe you should watch this when you have some time.
Watch it.
So, yeah, it's definitely a show. You have to give it a chance, though. That's
yes.
the one
thing. Oh, my
thing
God.
that you are not going.
The first few episodes are a slog. I get it. I mean, I still liked it, but I was definitely like, what's the point of this? Because I liked all the characters. I was okay with them. Like, they seem nice, but until they really start getting going, it's kind of like, what am I watching? Why am I watching this?
Yeah, you've got to give it time, and I know it stinks because I generally have like a 3 or 4 episode policy that if it's not by the first 3 or 4 episodes, I'm kind of done with it. But you've got to give this show the time to breathe and to get going, and once it does, I think it's like that 5th or 6th episode, then you're in, and that's it.
Yes, exactly. It's just like I feel that's partly on them. Like I feel like episodes 1 and 2 could easily have been one episode. Like they could have cut so much randomness out of that. But anyway, yes, try. I promise it does get awesome. And once you like get emotionally invested, like that's it. You're in for the long haul. Once you find one character that you love, and there are certainly many of them, then you'll just be in for everything, and you'll fall in love with everyone else. So it's just a really nice, it's a really positive, fun, funny, emotional, dramatic show. It's like everything. I can't even.
Now, is there a place that people can go to? Are you blogging still? Are you tweeting?
I am
people
restarting my blog soon. It has not begun yet, but it will now be at MediaGeekAlert.com. And I have not started yet, so there's actually nothing there. But someday there will be. So, yeah, I'm restarting it, and I'll be writing about everything. But right now, there's nothing.
And it's a new website, yes? Because
it is. It's a full website.
Okay, because I remember it being Media Nerd Alert, and now you're going to Media Geek Alert?
Yeah, Media Nerd Alert was my WordPress, but this is official domain website now.
Oh, awesome. Well,
I'm
once it gets up and running, I'll be sure to link to it on the Facebook page.
Great.
And thank you so much for coming on. You now, at this point, as of July 9th, you are the person that has been on the podcast 5 times now. 5 times.
There can only be one.
You have separated yourself yet again.
That's the plan.
But thank you for your time, Dee, and I will make sure that people watch when this episode or this 2-hour premiere. You know, we've got a year or so, so once it comes out, people will be duly notified of it multiple times.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.